Right, on to the second page then, okay? Now it's interesting because Desdemona ends her speech with these words, "Let that suffice you." So in other words, she's telling Cassio that she's not going to go and intervene on his behalf at that moment, that he needs patience. You can almost feel the audience give a sigh of relief because we, the audience, understand how damaging that would be. We're in possession of the plot, and that's what makes the drama so effective. That's something to comment on in terms of the structure. And now we see Iago at his best. Great tragedies often have a remarkable antagonist, and as I've said, Iago is certainly that. He's an amazingly theatrical character, and here we see that he's a consummate actor and performer. For those of you who want to talk about meta-theatre, and that this is a play about theatre, it's not a bad idea to do so. Alternatively, you can talk about the theme of appearance and reality, which is a very strong theme in this particular scene. So Iago says, "Is my lord angry?" And the audience might almost have a kind of grudging admiration for him because he's such a consummate performer. And this is a wonderful example. There are many examples that you could link to elsewhere in the play. What I thought might be worth linking to here is the critic William Empson, who wrote a brilliant essay called Honest in Iago. And he was the first person to point out that Iago is referred to as honest over 50 times. I believe it's 52 times. So there's an extraordinary concentration on this word, and it's used when the term is being misapplied. And that's the remarkable thing. And it's worth the audience remembering, within the play world, within the diegesis, Iago is considered a man of blunt honesty, a man to be relied upon. And that's what's so remarkable. Now, in terms of linking that later, or earlier rather, to a moment in the play, perhaps when Iago speaks of reputation is an idle and false imposition, those words again are filled with such dramatic irony. The character that he speaks them to, Cassio, does not understand how important they are. But we, the audience, understand just how important those words are. And part of the tragedy is the fact that the characters are unable to see what we grasp. And that creates the enormous amounts of tension. So the audience sit in a state of tension because they watch paralyzed as the characters are undone by this ingenious actor. And notice here again, Iago. Can he be angry? And is he angry? He's incredulous. Now let's not forget, in the previous scene, he has goaded Othello into an absolute rage. He has provided him with the ocular proof, the handkerchief that he sought. He is fully aware of the rage that Othello's in. But here, once again, we see that he is superb. And what's really interesting is he chooses this moment to have an extraordinary speech of praise. I've said it's almost like a blazon in the sonnet, when you praise a character for their incredible beauty or virtue or their singing voice, etc. And here, Iago gives him this tribute, reminding us that Othello is a great martial figure, a great soldier and a warrior. So he chooses this time. And again, the dramatic irony is incredible, because we, the audience, have been watching Othello being undone, and now we are reminded of the former Othello by the very man who wants to destroy him. And Desdemona is kind of relieved by this. She says, "I prithee do so." Now notice, exit Iago. Iago's exits are well-timed, just like his entrance earlier was well-timed. It's all about the consummate skill of his plan or his plot, his net, his web, his bird line, all of those image clusters that he uses to describe his incredible plot, okay? And we see once again Desdemona's very pure, spotless nature. Now, from a modern feminist perspective, we would see this as a fault. We would see this as the fact that she has given no kind of introduction to the world. She has no worldly knowledge. She can't read men. She's been kept captive by her father. And that really is visible here, because in the scenes between Desdemona and Emilia, and it would be worth discussing them in your essay, we see that Emilia has far more worldly knowledge, far more street smart than than Desdemona does, okay? And once again, Desdemona tries to see the best in Othello, just as we saw earlier. She says, maybe some bad news hath puddled his clear spirit. So once again, she has seen him in terms of pureness, clearness, etc. Iago has always seen him in terms of blackness, dirtiness, and using what you could call pollution effects. She, on the other hand, idolizes him and sees him in this clear way. So that's definitely a kind of phrase that you might want to swag. We've seen this pattern that she constantly wishes to support Othello in his career. We saw it in Act 1, Scene 3 in the trial. And here again, she sees Othello as an important public figure. She reminds us that he has a big job. And we see the goodness of her, the absolute goodness of her, as she tries to find an excuse for Othello's terrible behavior to her. And she says, nay, we must think men are not gods. So she's reminding herself that all men have defects, etc. However, her hamartia, and remember the word hamartia means wrong decision rather than fatal flaw. Her hamartia is to not see what is before her. She idolizes her husband. And even in this speech, she kind of blames herself, calling herself unhandsome warrior. Immediately the audience thinks back to that beautiful moment when Othello sees her in Cyprus and shouts, "Oh, my fair warrior." Really interesting term in which love and conflict are seen to have parallels. Anyway, she ends the speech by almost blaming herself for thinking bad thoughts about Othello. So we see her as absolutely selfless. Now, obviously, in Jacobean times, this may very well have been seen very differently from today. In Jacobean times, this kind of service to your husband would be commended. And today, in a feminist or post-feminist world, that certainly wouldn't be the case. And many members of the audience today find it very difficult to understand and forgive Othello, particularly because Desdemona's virtue causes us, the audience, so much pain, as we will see in the next act. Now, as I said a moment ago, the contrast between Emilia and Desdemona is remarkable, and it really does throw Desdemona's hamartia into relief. Notice here, Emilia says, "Pray heaven it be state matters as you think, and no conception nor no jealous toy." Now that's very worrying, isn't it? And notice that Desdemona recognizes that. She says, "Alas the day, I never gave him cause." This is the dawning awareness that Desdemona has that something is wrong, that her assessment of Othello's character might be not as accurate as she believed. Notice she does not deny what Emilia says. She almost confirms it, and she protests her innocence, and she will go to her deathbed believing that if she retains, that her innocence will protect her. Now we approach the end. As I said, Desdemona believes that her innocence will protect her. Emilia, on the other hand, realizes that jealousy is entirely irrational. She calls it a monster, and of course that reminds us of the haunting phrase, "the green-eyed monster that mocks the flesh upon which it feeds." Emilia understands how captivating jealousy is. And we're reminded that Iago, her husband, is obsessed by ideas of sexual betrayal. In Act 1, Scene 3, as early as that, He gives his suspicion that betwixt the sheets he has done my office. The he here is Othello. He fears that Othello's slept with his wife. Later, he fears Cassio with my nightcap. Again, both of these instances don't seem to be grounded in any kind of reality at all. So when Emilia speaks of jealousy, the audience are reminded of the kind of patriarchal fury and violence which can occur when men feel that they have been wronged. So it's a real warning. So briefly, in conclusion, in this scene, we see the virtue of Desdemona. We also see the fact that she is beginning to have an inkling of the danger that she is in, but it's not a full realization, and it won't be a full realization until she's on her deathbed. So as we approach the catastrophe, and the catastrophe in this case will be Desdemona's killing in her own bedroom in her wedding sheets, the catastrophe is heightened by the fact that Desdemona is such a remarkable and virtuous lady. And that is one of the reasons why this is such an effective scene in terms of establishing the final tragedy. Thank you.